Hi, I'm Josh Elliott, and today I will be reviewing Gerald's Game, the newest film by Mike Flanagan, recently released on Netflix. So, Mike Flanagan is the director of Hush, Oculus, and Ouija Origin of Evil. Not the original Ouija, but the better prequel. I have not seen Oculus or Ouija Origin of Evil, but I have seen Hush, and Hush was a fun time. So even though I have not seen all of his work, it seems like he continues to just produce great horror content. That's great to have like new, fresh horror directors producing really good horror films because horror is making a comeback this decade. So Gerald's Game is based off of a Stephen King novel of the same name. It's about a middle-aged couple who tries to spice things up in their relationship by introducing a sex game where the wife, played by Carla, how do I pronounce her name? Carla Gugino. She's basically handcuffed to a bed, but the problem is her husband suffers a heart attack and dies, and she's still handcuffed to the bed. And so the whole movie is about her having to... Can you not? And the whole movie's about her trying to not only escape these handcuffs, but also keep herself sane because some really f***ed up shit happens in this movie. And it gets really intense, and it's really good. If you like horror at all, watch Gerald's Game. Gerald's Game is a prime example of how to do like low budget indie horror. First off, Mike Flanagan films this movie so well. After seeing this and Hush, Mike Flanagan is really good at filming movies in confined spaces. This movie, 90% of it takes place in this one room. She is strapped to the bed this entire time. She is not moving. So you can't like move her around to make it more visually interesting. And so he has to move the shots around. It gives life to this room that she is in. And it's really interesting the way he films it. This type of story, it's practically unfilmable. Mike Flanagan's one of the very few people that could have done this movie right, if not the only one. What's so interesting about this story is that how it's paced, because this type of story, basically spending an hour and a half in one location the entire movie, you would expect that it would be really interesting at first, because like that's when the concept takes form, and you're like, oh my gosh, what's she gonna do? So you think it would be interesting for like 15 minutes and then get boring. This movie actually gets more interesting the more it goes along. At first, she's kind of just freaking out, as you would in that type of situation, but then she starts to lose her mind. She starts talking to disembodied versions of herself and her dead husband. They are basically her consciences. They're like her thought process, and so anytime she needs to figure something out, they're helping her through it. They're reminding her, hey, you did this earlier. This little thing that happened, and it was just like a throwaway moment in the movie, this is now actually incredibly important to the story. And that's just a super inventive way to show a character's thought process. Mike Flanagan did it in Hush as well, but it works once again here because you see the different personalities of her and her husband clashing with each other as they are trying to tell her what to do. As she starts to kind of lose her mind, you learn a lot of things about her. Without going into spoilers, you do get to see a flashback of something major that happened to her in her childhood. There are two scenes from her childhood that you get to see. The first scene, something pretty horrific happens to her, and then the second scene is the aftermath of that. And that one's even more horrific because you get to see how certain people manipulate her into misinterpreting what happened in the first scene. I'm really trying to not get into spoilers with this because I really don't want you to hear it from me. I want you to see it for yourself and experience it. The way the story is told is so fascinating. The tension is constantly building in this story that you would expect to lose all interest in like 30 minutes in, but somehow it's just still getting more and more interesting, and it's really good. I have one problem with this story though, and it's kind of a big problem, and it frustrates me, but it's not just about a woman trapped to a bed trying to escape. Stephen King, he likes the supernatural. And so they do introduce some supernatural elements into it, and I feel like those supernatural elements really drag the story down, especially in the final 10 minutes. In this type of movie, you need the climax to be like right at the end, because the whole movie's building up to whether she will either die or escape. I'm not going to say which one happens, but one of them does. The movie needed to end right then and there and get its point across. But it continues for another 10 minutes, and you see the aftermath of everything that happened. It gets very philosophical. It's not good. It's not a good 10 minutes. It's not bad, it's definitely the worst part about the movie. I think that it drags the story down because it starts to make it about things that it really shouldn't have been about. It should have just been about this woman trapped to a bed trying to hold on to her sanity while trying to escape. That's all it needed to be. It did not need to be anything more. I was a little frustrated that it wasn't. But other than that, this movie's fantastic. Carla Gugino, sorry again if I'm pronouncing her name wrong. Boy, she's fantastic in this movie. I don't think I've ever seen her as a lead in anything. You really get a sense of her character. This type of movie, it would be so easy to play the character as just someone that cries a lot and freaks out and not really give her any personality. You get a sense of her personality, you get a sense of who she is as a person. I really admired her performance, one of the best of the year, probably the best of her career. Mike Flanagan, he did it again. This makes me want to see Oculus and Ouija Origin of Evil because he is a fantastic filmmaker. So I'm gonna give Gerald's Game an 8 out of 10. So what did you think of Gerald's Game? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Please comment below. Also, please like and subscribe to High School Film Nerds. Follow us on Instagram and tell me what you think of this review. Bye, guys!